show is brought to you by justinform.com, a social media website that does not track you, sell your data, or your privacy. Join me at justinform.com and be informed. And now, coffee with Tim Black. Coffee with Tim Black. That's right. Yeah, guys, how you doing? All right, good afternoon to everybody on the East Coast. Good morning to my people on the West Coast. Welcome to Coffee with Tim Black. Everybody get your coffee or your tea or your water, whatever you drink, right? Even get your Jack Daniels if you need to, because today is a somber day indeed. So also take this opportunity to go ahead and share this on your social media, wherever you are, wherever your, whatever your social media of choice is, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Google+. There's still people on Google+. It still exists. It's still a thing. I didn't realize. Or Instagram. All right, today we're going to discuss the updates regarding the Dallas shooting, Batham Shimjeen. We're going to talk about that case. There's been some new developments or some new storylines coming out of it, a different narrative that we like to discuss and get an update on that story. But obviously today is 9/11, 17 years later, and we're going to talk about that tragic event. We're going to talk about what's happened since and kind of get into some not really well-publicized facts about 9/11 and what it's been used for in this country. And I think we can start there with this. Let's check and see if we got people in the chat. Let's see if we got Facebook and YouTube and all our friends tuned in. Mr. Broken A's, morning, Tim. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Broken. How are you? Judy Driggers is in the house. YouTube. James Simmons, goodness gracious. And Google. John says peace, and I got my coffee stout. Hope that counts. Hey, that does count. That works. That's... whatever floats your boat, right? Whatever gets it in for you, right? I see my Facebook people in the house, and do I see, the YouTube? Let me see if the YouTube's working. That's what's not here. Let's see. Oh, that's Facebook. Automatic. There we go. Do I have to choose this? Let's try this. All right. Sometimes the chat thing doesn't seem to work right. But it's okay because you're out there. You're out there somewhere. Pull him on in here. All right, guys. So I gotta get going. Let's do this. So, 9/11, tragic day where close to 3,000 Americans were killed. It was a tragic event, and of course, no matter who you are or what you believe, well, hopefully, no matter who you are, what you believe. I don't want to put words in people's mouths, and we got a lot of people that believe a lot of different things. But I believe whenever there's loss of life of innocent people, then we must pay homage to that in remembrance of that. And 9/11 was definitely one of those events. One of the criticisms that we see from the right or from conservatives to liberals is that we do not respect our troops. We don't respect America. We don't love America. And nothing could be further from the truth. To want to improve a thing is not the same thing as not loving it. 9/11 was a horrific event, and I want to make it known that I respect those who, the first responders. I feel the deep amount of sympathy and empathy for those who lost family members on this day. And I would like to hope that something substantial, tangible can be taken away from this event, that we can become better people and treat each other more fairly, more humanely, not just in the United States, but globally. There's a saying that you can only get rid of darkness with light, or you can only cure hate with love. Well, it's something like that. I know I'm butchering it badly, but my sentiment is that going forward, what we do, and it's 17 years later, and it seems like the only course of action for us is more violence. I do not believe that's the way that you honor these people who gave their lives and those people who are still suffering the effects of exposure from this traumatic event. I think there's other ways we could go with this, but I don't think those ways are profitable to the United States, nor in our intentions in the Middle East. There's a famous quote used amongst politicians that you never fail to take advantage of a catastrophe. And I'm butchering that as well. It's actually stated another way. But the sentiment is correct, as in accurate. So as we look at this day, like for me, folks, I always feel trepidation when 9/11 comes around. Yeah, I feel a sense of dread, so to speak, because I know that this day, unlike any other day on the calendar, will be used to great effect to push for more war. And it's not as if it will be done outwardly, like, deliberately, like in your face. Hey, we want more war, and this justifies war, and so what? We just need to do this, more of this, because of this thing. But it will be subliminally pushed under the guise of patriotism. And that totally leaves me out of energy, knocks the wind out of me, knowing that so many people will be influenced as the propaganda machine ramps up and tells people, once again, the only way to deal with this horrific event 17 years ago is to increase our military budget, to continue to drop more bombs, killing more civilians in countries far away under the guise of spreading democracy. And here's the mind screw, trying to combat an event that happened 17 years ago. Now, one of the good things about having the internet is you have the opportunity to make friends with and be around with like-minded people. You share information, quotes, memes, and through that communication, though we're miles away from each other, our sentiments can be the same. To that fact, there are a couple of quotes I'd like to mention. And riff on, actually. One from my friend Ron Placone. Ron Placone posted this on Twitter. He says, "On today, it's important to never forget that George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, etc. are war criminals." Yeah, we kind of a good idea to remember that. It's actually very factually sound. See, I would hate to burst bubbles, but I need to burst bubbles in order to wake people up. The wars that were subsequently followed after 9/11 had nothing to do with defending America or retaliation for the 9/11 catastrophe attack, however you phrase it. We went to war under false pretenses. America was lied to in order to profit, in order to build up defense contractors' votes of money. Vote, as in the door closing, the bank vote. So Ron Placone is correct. And I'm glad to know Ron Placone because it keeps me sane at a time like this. Another quote from a friend of mine, Bill Cimbrello, he tweeted this out in your Keep Yourself Sane Day during this Patriots Day, during the hashtag Never Forget. Bill says on 9/11, the USA was attacked by individuals mostly from Saudi Arabia, resulting in 2,996 deaths, not one Iraqi. Yet the Bush administration sold the United Nations on justifying the attack on Iraq, killing over 600,000 Iraqis. Big lies come in all sizes. Has anyone apologized? I'm gonna have to go with no there, Bill. No, no one apologized. Not at all. Not one Iraqi. So of all the people, we know there's a big picture. If you look this up on, let's see if we can pull this up. If you look this up on, let's say the Google, and you look for the 9/11, you look through the 9/11 information. You do a search for Never Forget, or you look up, let's say for instance, let's look up 911 attackers. 911 attackers, guys. 911 attackers. And we go to images. And let's bring this in here so people can see what I see. And we can all be on the same page. Here we go. So I'm using this web browser here. I hate using that web browser. But you see here the images of the 911 attackers. What I'm trying to tell you, folks, is that none of these people that you see pictured here are Iraqis. That's the point. But yet we attacked Iraq. We used it to justify over 600,000 deaths at our hand. Instead of people actually questioning that directive, actually questioning, using today to actually look back and question, hey, what does our government do, and what do it means to do it, and what's the means, what are they trying to justify, and what has been the damage, who has suffered from that? Instead of looking at anything along those lines, instead we just go patriotism, and demonize those who would question the motives of a government that would attack a country that had nothing to do with 9/11. Now, I'm no wallflower. If I, if you can produce to me evidence, right, to the contrary, we'll go right ahead. But it's a historical fact what America has done since 9/11. In fact, I have a report I'm looking at here I'd like to share with you. A Defense Department report found that between September 11, 2001 and April 2018, the wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria have cost U.S. taxpayers more than $1.5 trillion. The three current military operations, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, Operation Freedom Centennial in Afghanistan, Operation Inherent Resolve in Syria and Iraq, and Operation Noble Eagle for Homeland Security in the U.S. and Canada account for $185.5 billion of that amount, with the funds going towards training, maintenance, food, clothing, medical services, equipment, and paychecks. The war in Iraq, Operation Iraqi Freedom / New Dawn, cost $730.9 billion. While Operation Enduring Freedom, mostly in Afghanistan, cost $584.3 billion. Now, I'm not that good at math, but that's a lot of money. And some people say, Tim, what's the big deal about, let's stop talking about money. All you want to do is focus on the dollar signs and who's making money. Hey, this is America. We're capitalists. To that, I say, screw you. Go to hell. Because whenever I bring up policies that matter to American citizens, you always bring up money. But when I bring up money about war, you are silent or you push back. Well, let's skip the money part. Let's go to, death. Because that is what we are concerned about when it comes to 9/11. When we remember 9/11, you can't help but think about the people that lost their lives, the families that were forever mangled with this day. U.S. troops have been fighting in Afghanistan for the last 17 years, and there are about 14,000 Americans serving there now. Last week, Defense Secretary James Mattis, the mad dog himself, doesn't that just feel good, like to have this guy leading your military? A mad dog leads your military. Leads my military too. He said he was pleased that peace talks are underway with the Taliban, and right now we have more indications that reconciliation is no longer just a shimmer out there. No longer just a mirage. It now has some framework. There's some open lines of communication. Wow, it only took 17 years and 600,000 deaths, three war campaigns, and $1.5 trillion to get us to the point where we could say, hey, we see some type of peace talks in the horizon somewhere out there. Saturday Night Live used to have this little segment they did called Lowered Expectations. It would be an undesirable man with an undesirable woman going, yay! Ladies and gentlemen, this is the political version of Lowered Expectations. So as we look at 9/11 and as we remember back, I strongly, I want to make sure it's crystal clear. People who lost their lives, lost loved ones, and some people who have yet not even discovered the effects of being exposed to the toxins from the wreckage of 9/11. According to doctors and reports, there's some people who are going to have effects for the rest of their lives. They may not even exhibit symptoms yet. Cancers and what have you, respiratory conditions, and some have. Some have perished from that, which gets very little documentation, very little coverage of first responders who lost their lives subsequently after 9/11. So I in no way want to minimize the devastation of that day. But what I do want to call attention to, focus attention to, direct your attention to, is the profiteering which has occurred after 9/11 using this tragic event as a catapult to rake in more dollars into our military-industrial complex and also to lower your resistance to the idea of going to war, to the idea of war, to the actions of war, and to warmongering, greedy bastards who are not standing up for democracy as much as they're standing up for money. So, let's go to the chat and see what our people say. That's my little monologue on that. I'm sure that we have people that have thoughts that they would like to share. Andrea Wright says, "Are all you guys sharing this?" Yeah. Share it. Share the broadcast. Share this broadcast. Jennifer Bigden. Judy Driggers, truth to power, Tim. Thank you for always keeping it 100. Well, thank you, Judy, for being here. I appreciate you. See, when we start talking about 9/11, a lot of people are they have reasons for not wanting to go further, because we know the backlash that you suffer when you dare to question your government. When you dare to question your government, it's risky. So let me see, but I think it's necessary. I believe it's necessary, and it is necessary, because without questioning the actions of your government, you remain uninformed. $1.5 trillion on war since 9/11. See, I'm not here to suggest, I'm not on that, oh, it didn't happen, it was staged, it's a false flag. I'm not on that. I've never stated that I didn't believe it happened. And I never stated that America did it. This is not that has never been my vantage point. My vantage point has always been, as with similar events, is that they are taken and used to great effect by the establishment to accomplish whatever means they mean to accomplish. And in the case of 9/11, it was used to take us to war. See, we knew that this was an opportunity where Americans' aversion to war. I mean, come on, most Americans who feel that there are so many things that need to be corrected in this country wouldn't just co-sign a war unless given an impetus. What's a better impetus in a country that prides itself on its military, prides itself on patriotism, prides itself on this idea that America stands for something, then using a, how can we say, victim, us being the victim, and the boogeyman, that being all of Muslim world inhabitants, is pretty much the way it was placed. $1.5 trillion. $1.5 trillion. So all I'm trying to say, guys, is that we tend to shy away from talking about it because, well, hell, we know there'll be a price to pay. There could be a price to pay for it. You can get deplatformed. You can get added to numerous lists. But I figure since I'm already probably on numerous lists and I'm already up for deplatforming, I've already suffered that and probably will again, well, on a day like today, you got to speak truth to power on this issue. I don't see a way around it, guys. Schultz 100 says $1 trillion in unpaid medical benefits for veterans still to be paid just for Iraq. Someone here says $21 trillion. Laurie, people will come and share and watch later. I know I do that. Always share. Thank you. Bree Hood. Money isn't even real. Life is. Money isn't real. Life is. Lowered expectations. Susan Murphy's in the house. Hey, Susan, how you doing? Suzanne. Angela Motti. Tim and everyone watched the Toronto hearings. It's an eye-opener. See, I love my people in my chat, man. They give good information. And I think we have one of the best chats on the internet. So like I said, it becomes a daunting task to talk about 9/11. Of course, this post won't be shared many places due to it's 9/11, and they want to push out the narrative. And they would like to lump your brother Tim Black into a group of people that didn't believe it even occurred, which is totally not my stance. My stance is that it is being used to kill people abroad. It has been used to have young men and women in this country sign up to go fight. It has been used to sell this notion that we are the victims of Muslims, which has been very dangerous and deadly for Muslims across the globe. Like we say on this channel often, like we say, guys, they'll complain when we talk about policies that would help citizens. They complain about the amount of money for that, but they won't complain about the amount of money for war. And the reason why so many of your friends and neighbors and family agree with them is because they sell this idea that where America is constantly under attack, that America, look at 9/11, look at 9/11, look at 9/11. They use that. And with the propaganda machine running as tirelessly 24/7, pumping out this information, it's really hard to penetrate and get through and say, look. This is a mechanism for playing you and playing us. And we need to focus on these issues that matter to American citizens here in the U.S. and stop tending to matters and intervening in the Middle East. Now, we thought we had that with President Barack Obama. That's what he ran on. And lo and behold, he came into office. We're at war in 2 places. By the time he left, we were at war in 7. He did the actual opposite of getting us out of wars. He took us to more wars, multiplied them by 3, and then was passed off as the poster man for peace, winning the Nobel Peace Prize of all things. And when we bring up these facts, all facts, easily confirmed, using any web browser, we're called kooky, left extremist, deranged, horseshoe, right-wing, alt-right, alt-left, and what other derogatory term that they can muster and pull out of their butt cracks. All right. All right, guys, so I'm going to shift gears a little bit because this is, I don't know if I have any more to share on this. I mean, either you have awakened to the fact that 9/11 has been used to justify war and the killing of millions of people, or nearly 1 million people at least, in Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, or you don't. You think they deserve it. Or you think, hey, man, what's on Netflix? Which is true. A lot of people just don't want to pay attention, man, because the idea of the reality is, and look, I believe that most people go, you know what, something just ain't right. Something's not right. But it looks scary to find out, so I'm just going to leave it alone because, hell, I got bills to pay, I got to keep the car up, the dog needs shots, and the kids are addicted to their Roblox. I got other stuff to worry about, damn it. And to those people, I say, this is something that you should worry about too. This is just as important. Because if you don't have a country that actually works for you, that actually cares about you, a government that doesn't want to make sure that the citizens in its country, its tax-paying citizens, are not put first, that the priorities of those citizens are not put first, well then I don't know what all the Roblox and the Netflix and the paying the bills and all that's going to do for you, bruh. And that's a very simple message, and I think it makes sense. So, well, here goes something I think is interesting. And since we're here, and I think you'll hang out for a couple moments, I have something I think would be worth sharing. Let's go here together, guys. This is on Twitter. And because, of course, this being Patriots Day, It's Patriots Day, and Donald Trump, he said a few words, so let's check that out.
You fill our hearts with pride, and I want to thank some of you here today answered the call and raced to this field 17 years ago. You fill our hearts with pride, and I want to thank you on behalf of our country. Thank you very much. Most importantly, to the family members of Flight 93. Today, all of America wraps up and joins together. We close our arms to help you shoulder your pain and to carry your great, great sorrow. Your tears are not shed alone, for they are shared grief with an entire nation. We grieve together for every mother and father, sister and brother, son and daughter who was stolen from us at the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and here in this Pennsylvania field. We honor their sacrifice by pledging to never flinch in the face of evil and to do whatever it takes to keep America safe.
Wow.
Some of you here today answered the call and raced to this field 17 years ago.
Let's stop it there, guys.
You fill our hearts with pride, and I want to thank you.
Let's see if we can stop it there. You know, this is why one of the commenters on the YouTube channel said that this is used to take away our privacy and to take away our rights. Under the excuse, in the guise, once again, that, oh, we're going to try to keep you safe. The way that, listen to Donald Trump. This is exactly what he's saying, and this is used to great effect. People give away their rights because of this.
Your tears are not shed alone, for they are shared grief with an entire nation. We grieve together for every mother and father, sister and brother, son and daughter who was stolen from us at the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and here in this Pennsylvania field. We honor their sacrifice by pledging to never flinch in the face of evil and to do whatever it takes to keep America safe.
That's right. To do whatever it takes to keep America safe, even if it means killing innocent people hundreds, thousands, or thousands of miles away. Even if it means taking away your rights as an American citizen in order to justify that. They say, hey, well, we got to do this to keep you safe. So if you don't have any privacy, it's to keep you safe. Hey, we need to search and seize and search because we need to keep you safe. Hey, brother, we need to remove habeas corpus to keep you safe. We need to do these drone attacks to keep you safe. Hey, we need to bug you, inspect your mailbox to keep you safe. All to keep you safe. And out of fear, and using the tragic events of 9/11, they're able to do so. And unknowing Americans go along with it to keep us safe. That's the racket. That is the scheme. All right, so TBTV, TTL Media, Coffee with Tim Black is brought to you by you. It's not brought to you by any entity, any group of people, any organization, just by viewers like you who care about information. So become a member of TBTV. Get programs like the Coffee with Tim Black Show just by signing up. Go to patreon.com, Tim's Take Live. Hope to see you there. That's why, whenever 9/11 rolls around, I always wonder what's the best way to tackle the subject in order to have a conversation about it, in order to because some people, like, they're not totally awake on this issue. The propaganda is so thick. They don't see how this is being used. And killing in your name in foreign countries for oil reserves has nothing to do with keeping you safe. Dolores Pierce says there's always a boogeyman to scare the people. This is true. If you don't have anything to hide, blah, 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 says Carla Levar. Oh, I love that one. But if you don't have anything to hide, if you're doing nothing wrong, isn't that the easy one to fall into? Because your mind says, hey, well, you know what? That kind of makes sense to me. Well, it only makes sense because you believe that there are other Americans who you have, you bought into this idea that they're horrible people. So if you buy into that horrible idea, you think, well, those people need to be caught, and hey, well, we got to do it somehow. Not realizing that, no, you have rights for a reason. And the Constitution was written in a way to protect those rights, right? Isn't that what conservatives say all the time? But we've been giving it away and giving it away. And a lot of those rights were given away by a Democratic president. The more you know. Melissa Mary Coon says, bingo, Tim. Well, bingo to you too, Marie. Melissa Marie, thank you for supporting TBTV Media and this show, sister. I appreciate you, and I saw you, and thank you. Thank you. Let's check and see if we got any super chat people in the house. I'm often forgetting people. I guess I can close a couple of these windows up. All right, guys. I want to shift gears a bit because there's a couple other things that are happening. How many people remember this story? We talked about it on this channel. We talked about the murder of a man in his own apartment who had committed no crime. He did nothing wrong except be in his apartment. Yeah, we've covered that. Well, there's an update to the story of Botham Jean. There happened in Texas, Dallas, Texas, Officer Amber Geiger. Now, as you know the story, right? Officer works a full shift. She comes home and she, for some strange reason, forgot which floor she lived on and forgot what her apartment number was. Even forgot that the floor mats are different. And goes into a man's apartment and then is startled that he's in his apartment because she thought it was her apartment. And then shoots the man and he dies. Well, there's some updates to that story. Now, there's been protests gathering at the police headquarters in Dallas to speak out against the shooting death of Botham. The Dallas Morning News reports that community activists organized a rally Monday to protest last week's shooting of Botham Jean. Officer Amber Geiger was arrested on Sunday on a manslaughter charge and released on bond. An arrest affidavit that gives a narrative of what happened was released Monday. It appears to be based almost entirely on the officer's account. Attorneys for John's family say it's self-serving and contradicts neighbors' accounts. So let's talk a little bit about how the story has morphed from Miss Amber Geiger going into the apartment, having trouble getting into the apartment because she didn't have a key, wrestling with the lock, to now some other thing that she says happened and something else. It's like totally, like the story's totally changed, guys. And I'm not totally, you know, like I'm confused, like how this story has morphed. It's really gotten wackier and wackier as it goes on. John's back here like, what the hell's going on, Tim Black? I don't get it. I don't get it either, John. Doesn't make sense to me. It's pretty confusing. But I have a clip here to kind of, well, not a clip, but actual something we can read along together and kind of get a better idea of how the story's been changing over the last 24, 48 hours as we try to keep up with it. So check this out. Here we go. Now, Sean King's been following this story, and Sean and I follow each other on Twitter. And maybe if I see if we can kind of went too far there. I want you to see what Dallas police officer Amber Geiger is doing. Okay, Sean, so what is she doing? Her news story is that Botham Jean's door was unlocked and she yelled for him to put his hands up. But look at her first story. The door was locked. She kept trying to unlock it, put down items in her hands, etc. So I've been trying to figure out what exactly is the story and why is it changing? As it continues to morph based on, I don't know, based on what they believe will be a more acceptable storyline. And that's my point. I agree with Sean King that when an officer is involved in a shooting such as this, any shooting, particularly a shooting you're off duty, but hell, even if you're on duty, like what's the difference, okay? But I believe that a statement should be taken immediately, and as should a video recording of that statement, sort of like an interrogation, which is something that you would be subjected to if you were accused of a crime or if you were involved in some type of activity that warranted police investigation. They would immediately take your statement. You would not have time to go talk to lawyers before you answer questions. Look, there's not a question, did Amber Geiger shoot and kill Botham Jean? She admits it. She did. So wouldn't you start the investigation off by questioning her and getting on her record as soon as possible about what the hell happened? That only makes sense. So what Sean King is saying, and what I believe is true, is that, well, they drag their feet on asking questions of police officers when they're involved in shootings, allowing police officers the time to meet with counsel and come up with a more plausible narrative, a narrative that leaves them free of any wrongdoing or mitigates the wrongdoing. You get what I'm saying? The Dallas police talked about this when this story first was launched. We have here a lieutenant
by the police, and the shooting is the latest piece, with critics saying Geiger was given preferential treatment by the police. And the shooting is the latest in a flurry of recent high-profile cases where unarmed black men have died at the hands of white police officers around the country.
He went to his grave never knowing why the police officer came into his apartment and shot him.
Police say a blood sample has been taken from Geiger to see whether there were any drugs or alcohol in her system, but the investigation has been turned over to the Texas Rangers because of the sensitivity of the matter. Authorities have come under fire from John's family for saying initially that Geiger would be arrested on suspicion of manslaughter, but then delaying in bringing a case against the officer.
Both of them never saw color He never saw race.
Right.
Both of them wanted all of us to unite, to be together.
John's attorney says his remains would be sent to his family's home in the Caribbean.
All right. So this story is continuing to spiral. Like I said, the stories have been changing. And it seems to me that this is just a cover-up begun. Now, there's nothing new when it comes to police shootings. Their stories change. Typically, they go to it moves to the direction of, oh, I was afraid. I was afraid. That's what's happening now. An attorney for Jean's family, Lee Merritt, said at a news conference Monday evening that 2 independent witnesses have told him they heard knocking on the door in the hallway before the shooting. He said one witness reported hearing a woman's voice saying, "Let me in, let me in." Then they heard gunshots, after which one witness said she heard a man's voice say, "Oh my God, why did you do that?" Merritt said he believes those were Jean's last words. Another lawyer for the family, Benjamin Krupp, said the affidavit is very self-serving. So the story has changed from her being at the door having trouble with the lock to now Jean coming outside, opening the door and startling her. But the witness testimony contradicts that affidavit or contradicts that statement, that narrative that's being painted now suddenly almost, 4 days later of what transpired just before the death of Botham Jean. Anyway, guys, what we'll do is with all these types of stories, all stories that we cover, we do try to follow it and include the updates on the story and keep you informed to the best of our ability. You know, I saw a tweet earlier today, and it kind of disturbed me. Because it gave me the impression that these types of issues that we cover are not important. And what I'm trying to tell you is that they are important. And the reason why I say that they're important is because if we start to expose what happens domestically, what our police force is doing, it's not just isolated. This is not a silo. If you can wrap your head around how the propaganda machine works on a story like this. I mean, this man was in his own home, gunned down. The initial story was she went to the wrong door. Somehow she got in the door, and then she happened upon Mr. Botham Jean and shot him. Now it has changed, and the media is rolling with the new narrative as if the original narrative never existed. As is the case in most propaganda, stories change in order to suit the narrative of the state. And in this case, the state would be the law enforcement, would be the police department. So, anyway, I will try to keep you up to date on this, but believe me, I think this story is going to get worse. Witnesses will be discredited. Witnesses that gave their recollection of the series of events or what they saw happen or what they heard happen, I should say, before the police officer, Amber Geiger, was even asked to go on the record. The witness statements came out before Amber Geiger's official statement. Well, before out of her mouth. There was a lieutenant who gave the response or gave the rundown of this case speaking for Amber. Here.
That is correct. That's what preliminary information is suggesting at this time. think that this was an intruder in her apartment?
Well, I won't go into that information right now. I mean, we have not interviewed her.
There we go.
The 1200 block of South Lamar. Now, preliminary information suggests that the officer was in full uniform and just finished working a full shift. And then she reported to responding officers that when she came home, she entered into the victim's apartment believing it was her own apartment. And at some point, she pulled her weapon and shot the victim. The responding...
There you go, folks. There it is right there. Okay, so that's the series of events that's being relayed by the Dallas, was it Mr. Mitchell, C. Mitchell, W.C. Mitchell? And I reported on this when it came out, when the story first broke. Mr. Mitchell, lieutenant, I think he's a lieutenant, he stated that she went inside the apartment. Isn't that what he said? Now, she didn't get inside the apartment, was at the door, and then Mr. Botham surprises her at his door. I'm not making this up. Here it is right here. This is what the lieutenant said. But I guess this story didn't play well enough in that way. So they had to, make it, they had to redo it. They had to come up with another version of the events. Back up a little bit.
She pulled her weapon and shot, and she reported to responding officers in the complex in the 1200 block of South Lamar. Now, preliminary information suggests that the officer was in full uniform and just finished working a full shift. And then she reported to responding officers that when she came home, she entered into the victim's apartment believing it was her own apartment. And at some point, she pulled her weapon and shot the victim. The responding officers administered aid to the 26-year-old male victim until the paramedics arrived, at which time he was transported to an area hospital where he was pronounced deceased.
You said the belief is that this officer went into what she believed was her own apartment, but it was not. It was a different apartment in the building, and this person who is now dead was inside there at the time?
That is correct. That's what preliminary information is suggesting at this time.
Did she think that this was an intruder in her apartment?
Well,
all right, guys. Entered into the victim's apartment. See, this is going to be important. It's important. This is very important because if Amber Geiger can use a defense that she did not enter his apartment, that he opened the door and surprised her in the hallway, that makes a big difference in how this case will play out. And you just heard the police lieutenant, W.C. Mitchell, say repeatedly, and then it was repeated to him by the reporter. So what you're saying is she went into the apartment, she entered the apartment, and then this Botham Shimo, the victim, she found a victim in the apartment, and he's like, yes. But see, now the story has changed to she couldn't get in the apartment. Please focus on this. So my hope is that we get justice for Botham, but also that we start pulling the veil and exposing propaganda for what it is and how the state protects itself. And though you and I may know this happens, we may be aware of the trickery that occurs in these types of cases, a lot of Americans are not aware. They don't get it, right? So this is an opportunity, a learning moment to see how this narrative is going to move about in order to justify the killing of a man in his own home. Notice I also noticed this, something that someone on Facebook sent me this message, and I want to point it out because I don't know who wrote it, and it's a great post on Facebook, and it says, Amber Geiger, after working a full shift, I guess she was so exhausted is the implication. She's so exhausted, something's wrong, but she's able to punch out. She's able to find her car, find her keys, start her car, drive her car, find her building. Hit no one on the way. Get out of her car. Walk into the building. Then the psychosis comes over her. Then the exhaustion overtakes her at that point. Doesn't make much sense when you start looking at it that way. I mean, she didn't get exhausted when she got to her building. If she was exhausted from working, as was sort of the implication in the whole working the full shift, as if she's never worked a full shift before. But they're not even taking that route. Now they're making it seem like, oh, it's just something happened and this black man shows up at the door and I had to kill him. So, we're going to continue, like I said, to follow this case. I think there's something at the very end of this that bears mentioning.
I won't go into that information right now. I mean, we have not interviewed her, and this is just, like I said, this is just a preliminary statement. We still have a lot to do in this investigation. So there's a lot of information I understand you guys want, but this is all we can give you at this time.
That's important to note again, guys. That's important to note right there. That's important to note. He said at that point that was based on their investigation, not based on the words of Amber Geiger, which is my point. She wasn't even interviewed yet. Go home, get your story together. Meet with your lawyers, meet with the department lawyers, the union lawyers or whatever, and then formalize your statement. But the information that W.C. Mitchell just gave you, Lieutenant Mitchell, was based on their investigation of looking at the crime scene of what happened. Now, the statement that's been released by Amber Geiger contradicts the Dallas Police Department, who has now, or then, turned the story or turned the investigation over to the Texas Rangers. And they said they did it because they didn't want to look partial. They wanted to be impartial. Well, is it possible they turned it over because they'd already released a damning finding regarding the case, and they would look pretty foolish? And not only people like independent media such as Tim Black would call them out for it, but maybe some other people might be forced to call them out for it, such as, corporate media, MSNBC. Just a thought. Just a thought, just a thought. I think I'm on to something there. I think we're on to something there. Yeah, I think we're on to something there. All right, folks, that's it. I want to thank you for tuning into the show and let you know that there's going to be, I'm going to have a guest tomorrow. It's a special show at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My guest will be Ro Khanna, here to discuss the legislation that's been introduced to hold Amazon and other big companies like Walmart accountable for not paying their employees a livable wage. You know it. It's the Bezos Act. So I would like to, so I'm hoping that you will join me. I'd like to see you join me for that presentation, for that stream. 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Ro Khanna, Congressman out of Silicon Valley, here to discuss the Bezos Act legislation, authored by, or sponsored by him and Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna, in order to hold these big corporations accountable for the taxpayer generated welfare revenue and state provisions, food stamps, what have you, that employees are forced to take because they don't get paid enough money to support their lives, basically. So it's very interesting legislation. We've covered it on this channel. Well, I want to talk to Ro Khanna about that and get his take on this legislation and what it means for working people. All right. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you again at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another version of the Tim Black at Night Show. And I will see you later. Don't forget you can contact me with story ideas at tim@timblacktv.com. tim@timblacktv.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter as Real Tim Black. I'm on the gram as Tim Black at Night. That's where you find me there. And until we talk again, you be safe. And remember, don't let nobody take your cornbread. Coffee. Black. Coffee with Tim Black.